Our shared dream is to be a place that celebrates rich history, where learning, laughter, and entertainment come together. A destination where memories and new friends are made. A destination where local flavor and eclectic cuisine meet, and where culture and community connect. Ideas are created and reimagined. We are rising, bigger and bolder. We invite you to discover your urban in downtown Orlando.
Visibility while driving at night can be challenging for drivers, and their failure to see pedestrians is often fatal. In Florida, 75% of pedestrian fatalities occur at night. Many drivers say they never saw the pedestrian. What will it take to see them? Can you see him now? Drivers, look for pedestrians, especially at night. Pedestrians, make sure you are visible. Alert tonight, alive tomorrow. Because safety doesn't happen by accident.
right, welcome everybody to the February 24th, 2020 meeting of the Orlando City Council. We're going to begin today's proceedings with the invocation offered today by Pastor Diane Davis of Conway United Methodist Church. While working for the Department of Social Services, Pastor Diane pursued a Bachelor of Science degree in Behavioral Science. She received a Master of Divinity from Wesley Theological and is a graduate of United Theological Seminary in Dayton, Ohio, with a doctorate of ministry. She strongly believes her 20 years of service with the Department of Social Services helped her develop her understanding of mission and ministry. She believes that the church's mission in the world is to be present and to minister in diverse ways to the poor, oppressed, the outcast, and the downtrodden. Her greatest joy is family. She and her husband, Russell, have 5 daughters and 4 grandchildren. After the invocation, will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance today by Human Resources Analyst Kelsey Rubin. Kelsey first joined the Army National Guard in 2012 and served for 6 years as a petroleum supply specialist, fueling trucks and helicopters while receiving her bachelor's degree in human relations. After that, she took a short break and missed her Army family so much she decided to re-enlist into the Army Reserve as a human resources specialist to match with her civilian career. Kelsey has been awarded the Army Achievement Medal and works hard always to hold her Army values. She was awarded the Governor's Veteran Service Award for her service to country in our great state of Florida. We are now excited to have her working for the City of Orlando and Human Resources. So she will continue to help serve her community. You may stand or remain seated. Pastor.
Let us pray. God of all creation, God of power and might, God of mercy and grace, we approach your throne with a heart of thanksgiving and a heart of praise. We give you thanks for abundant blessings and extravagant love showered on us every day. We are thankful for life, health, and strength. Thank you for those whom you have called to do the work of making responsible decisions for the betterment of this city. I pray for the mayor and all levels of city officials, especially those gathered here today. God, in your mercy, grant wisdom to those who have to make crucial decisions. Grant them the courage to stand in the midst of conflict. Grant them a hunger and thirst for justice and equality. Grant them an assurance of doing what is best for the people of this great city. Show them how to bring about unity and exemplify what it means to be the city called beautiful. Direct their paths when it comes to making those tough decisions and lead them in the walk of integrity in all that they do. Give them an ear to hear the cry of those who lack sufficient shelter and those who lack the basic needs. I pray for the agenda that is set before them today. Please give an assurance of what will be pleasing to you and what would help those who live and work in this city called beautiful. God of hope, God of mercy, and God of grace, hear our prayer. In the precious name of God, our Redeemer. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Kelsey. I'll now call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll and make determination of quorum, please?
Commissioner Gray.
Here.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Here.
Commissioner Stewart.
Here.
Commissioner Sheehan. Here. Commissioner Hill.
Here.
Commissioner Burns.
Here.
Mayor Dyer.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum with all members present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. First order will be to consider the minutes from the agenda review and city council meetings of February the 10th. Okay, who was first? Motion by Commissioner Stewart, second by Commissioner Sheehan. All those in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, we do have one really happy item on awards presentations and recognitions. I'm going to call on Doug Richards, one of our proud graduates of the University of Central Florida and also our Director of Community Engagement and Outreach, to make an introduction.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer, Commissioners. Sports have the power to bring communities together, and I don't think there's any question that over the last couple of years, the UCF Knights have brought our community closer. From football to basketball to soccer to tennis, the programs have achieved some great accomplishments, and one team that has really achieved some great accomplishments not only recently, but over the last couple of decades is the UCF cheerleading team. Under Coach Linda Gooch, the Knights are regularly among the top teams in the country at their competitions, and this year was no different. Last month, UCF took the national title at the UCA Cheer National Championship at ESPN Wild World of Sports. Today, we're joined by members of the national championship team and coaching staff. Mayor Dyer, you have a proclamation to read to recognize the team, and obviously we have some UCF Knights on the City Council, Commissioner Ortiz and our best dressed commissioner today, Commissioner Sheehan. So you're all welcome to join the team for a photo afterwards.
All right, proclamation, City of Orlando, Office of the Mayor. Whereas the University of Central Florida cheerleading team works to build pride in UCF athletics, connecting supporters to the Knights while also competing at the highest level in college cheerleading. And whereas on January the 19th, the Knights won the Universal Cheerleaders Association 2020 Division I Cheer National Championship at Walt Disney World's ESPN Wide World of Sports. And whereas UCF finished ahead of runner-up Alabama and defending national champion Kentucky. And whereas the national championship was the third in school history for the Knights, all under head coach Linda Gooch. And whereas the program has placed in the top 10 at the Nationals Championships 25 times in the last 27 years. And whereas the Knights are also excelling in the classroom, members of the championship squad posted a 3.28 cumulative grade point average. And whereas we're grateful that team members are making a difference in our community, volunteering their time throughout the city, including at our Callahan Neighborhood Center and at Orange County Public Schools. And whereas the City of Orlando is proud of the members of the team for their impressive performance at the National Championship and for inspiring our community with their skill, determination, and teamwork. Now, therefore, I, Buddy Dyer, Mayor of the City of Orlando, hereby do proclaim Monday, February 24th, 2020, as UCF Cheerleading National Champions Day in the City of Orlando.
Nice. We'll stand behind him. We'll stand behind him.
Charge on. Charge on. All right. Way to go, guys. Way to go, guys. And bring the injured ones too.
Should have did a cheer there.
So I can see a look of relief on a number of my staff's face. I've been known to flip a cheerleader every once in a while, so I did not do that. And I'm sure Heather is sitting up watching this thinking, I am so glad that he did not flip one of those cheerleaders. Okay, let's move quickly into the mayor's update. We're just a couple weeks away from our neighborhood and community summit, which will be on March the 7th. We keep getting more and more people every year. It brings residents and community leaders together for a vibrant day. You can register it by visiting orlando.gov/summit. Today's an affordable housing day. We've been really working hard as a city. Got to convince some of our other cities around Central Florida to work as hard on affordable housing. But today, we're considering MPB minutes that include a master plan for the redevelopment of property along the south side of Orange Center Boulevard. We've got a funding agreement to provide $2 million for 116-unit Fairlawn Village at the site of the old Pepper Tree Shores and Pepper Tree Circle, $1 million with Onik for the purchase and rehabilitation of the Baptist Terrace Senior Living Tower, which will ensure 197 units remain affordable. And we're finalizing a funding agreement to Amelia Court, which opened last summer and brings 256 units, 177 of which are affordable to create a village. So that brings us to a milestone of investing or committing more than $40 million the last 5 years to construct or rehab 1,600 multifamily units and over 150 new residential units. And then the last thing I want to mention, Commissioner Hill, is funding for improvements on sidewalks and crosswalks on Mercy Drive, and I'm sure you were going to talk about that, but I'm going to congratulate you on moving that forward. Okay, with that, we're going to move to, well, actually with that, we're going to recognize that I think we have a lot of students in the audience today. So if you're a student and you're here to observe your government in action, would you please stand up and let us recognize you? How about that? I can always tell when there's excited younger faces in the crowd, excited to learn and see government in action. Right? Okay. Okay, so the next part of the meeting will be the consent agenda, and the consent agenda is a number of items that are acted upon through a single vote of council. And before we vote on the consent agenda, we give each of our commissioners an opportunity to comment on items on the consent agenda and update you on important happenings from their individual districts. We rotate the order that we do that, and Commissioner Gray is first up today. Commissioner Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. And I will be brief given the length of the agenda. Just wanted to remind all neighbors, we do our annual community meeting in District 1 this Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday night, 6:30 at Conway Methodist Church, and Thursday night, 6:30 in the Dockside Inn Laureate Park. We've got about a dozen different groups coming to share information, everything from the Virgin train that's coming from the airport to our sustainability folks here at the city and everybody in between. So I'd invite everybody to come out for that. And with that, Mayor, I will just pass it to Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you. Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to start by February 10th to the 12th, I was in Tallahassee along with Commissioner Stewart for the Florida League of Cities Legislative Action Day. There were more than 250 local legislators visiting the Florida State Capitol to advocate for home rule, and about 9 other legislations that are going on in Tallahassee that are affecting us locally. For those of you that are interested in finding out what those are, please visit our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, media outlets. I want to give special thanks to Representative Ana Escamani, Carlos Smith, Amy Mercado, and Victor Torres for welcoming us, and about 3 other that we ended up visiting without appointment. But it was pretty aggressive, and there's a lot that we need to deal with. But for this, it's not an issue of just legislators or local legislators. It's an issue of everybody, you guys, our citizens, our constituents, because the state, in many instances, I mean, they're supposed to be representing us, but sometimes they just take different ways of doing things, and we have to keep them focused on our local government. This is where the weight of government lies, and we need your help. We definitely need your help. So please visit our website and visit our Facebook and Instagram and the media outlets and find out what are those legislations that are affecting us, like short-term rentals and issues like that, and see what they're trying to do compared to what you want for your community. On Saturday, February 15th, I had the pleasure of visiting with our District 2 seniors at the Dover Shores Neighborhood Center. We celebrated their everlasting impact in our community and showed appreciation for the road they have paved for generations to come. Being in their presence is always an honor. On Thursday, February 20th, I was invited to the Hispanic Federation to teach a crash course about government, how government works. It's important that we continue to spread knowledge about government to our constituents to better equip them for civic engagement, just like I was talking about. I want to thank the Hispanic Federation for having me. It was great being able to engage with those interested in learning more about what we do. On Thursday, also, that same day, we also hosted our first Neighborhood Leaders Council meeting of the year. We welcomed a new member and took part in a very productive discussion. We do this every other month in order to maintain our community abreast of what's going on here as government, actually at 3 levels, state and federal. And we also hear what kind of concerns our community have or complaints about any of the issues that happen or evolve on a daily basis. And with that, Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ortiz. We will move to Commissioner Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. And my way? Yeah.
Yes.
And Tony, thank you for your leadership up with Florida League of Cities. Some of y'all may or may not know that Tony is our incoming president next, I guess, starting in August, right? And has done a great job helping to work with the staff up there, and we're thrilled about your leadership there, but got a chance to see you in action, and you did a great job, so I appreciate that. So, a couple of quick things. Congratulations to the youth baseball team over in College Park and the former College Park Little League and now Orlando Babe Ruth. This year they celebrate their 70th year bringing youth baseball to the neighborhood. We have their kickoff in just a couple of weeks. Congratulations, Mayor Dyer, to you for being named tournament ambassador alongside PGA golfer Mark Leishman and singer Darius Rucker. So instead of throwing a cheerleader in we'll let you sing a couple of songs for the 2020 Arnold Palmer Invitational PGA Golf Tournament. It begins this next week. We're grateful for Mr. Palmer's investment in our city, his lasting legacy of the Arnold Palmer Children's Hospital and the Winnie Palmer Hospital as well. And so, Mayor, thank you for supporting this great event, and I'm glad you're being recognized. So enjoy the week out there. A couple of quick reminders of meetings. A reminder on behalf of the Florida Department of Transportation that Princeton Street will be closed at I-4 every night this week. So it closed through February 29th from 10 to 5 while they're removing a bridge. So make sure you make your plans accordingly. Also, speaking of FDOT, please come and share your thoughts for the public hearing hosted by the city and FDOT taking place on Wednesday, February 26th at 5:30 at the Northwest Neighborhood Center regarding the roadway improvements on segments of Princeton and OBT in the area of the Packing District. So please come and join us over there. And also join us on March 4th at 6 p.m. over at Lou Gardens for a community meeting to discuss how our city can make sure we have a plan in place to be future ready as it relates to innovations such as energy, utilities, transportation, public works, and even more. So for more information, please go to orlando.gov/future ready. We're going to talk about some stuff on the CRA later on, but I'd just like to say, talk to Thomas and talk to our people from Onik, and I appreciate the work. I have shared with y'all privately, I'll share publicly. I have a lot of personal history with Baptist Towers. My father and Gene Kelsey were on the team that built that. And Dad chaired as his president for the first 10 years until he's passing, and my brother chaired as following that. So having that downtown and continuing that legacy is a very important thing to me. And I want to appreciate the work that y'all have done. But as I say often, we stand on the shoulders of great men and great women in our community. And Gene Kelsey was one of those, along with my dad. I had the honor of sharing his gene pool, if you want to say that. So, but thank you for that. Let's make sure we continue not only finding new affordable housing, Mayor, as you talked about, but continue to make sure that what we have does not leave the inventory of what we need in our community, especially when it comes to seniors, especially when they're all now turning my age. And I don't like that at all. So thank you very much for letting me share that.
Thanks, Commissioner Stewart. Commissioner Sheehan.
Thank you, Mayor, and I want to thank Commissioner Ortiz, too, for his work on home rule. And something that really struck me this last session, the legislators were complaining that that developers have to work with 400 different municipalities. It's easier for them to work with 10 legislators on a panel. And I think it's kind of ridiculous to think that one size fits all. And I say, if they want to do one size fits all, why don't we just issue them one garment that is only available in one size and see how they like having things look all alike? It's ridiculous. The highest return on investment that we've gotten in development in the city of Orlando is Baldwin Park and our historic districts, because we have architectural control at the municipal level, and it's really important that that continue. And I actually sent that out to every neighborhood association in my district, and not one of them said that they were very concerned about this issue and were ready to write letters. I don't think it got a Senate sponsor, thank God, for this horrible bill. But again, this is the stuff that we're dealing with. We can't advocate for you because we're constantly having to fight bad bills at the legislative level. We would rather be working on things that benefit you in our community rather than fighting bad bills that don't make any sense at the legislative level. But thank you, gentlemen, for going up there and representing the city of Orlando and fighting the good fight. On the agenda today, I have a couple things. The facade grant at 2600 East Robinson Street. Looking forward to having that beautified. Item D4, Central Florida Community Arts. Programs for seniors at L. Claudia Allen, Beardall, John H. Jackson Center, Northwest, and Rosemont Community Centers. This is to help them with memory and music, and I think it's a wonderful program. And what's really great about it is there's no funding from us. It's all funded by a grant. So thank you, Central Florida Community Arts, for everything that you're doing for the seniors in our community. A small item today, Starbucks Fern Creek. I know folks were upset about that, but we're going to make it landscape and make it look really nice. But again, I tell people, if you want to keep small local businesses, you need to support them. You can't just fuss when they go away. You need to support them before they go away. I don't like big chains either, but you know what? I make sure that I eat out at smaller restaurants and things like that. And you got to kind of put your money where your mouth is if we want these smaller mom and pops to thrive. And on CRA number 4, Baptist Terrace, has already been talked about. This is something in my district. These are dear constituents of mine. I was very concerned about losing 197 units of affordable housing in our downtown core. This is very, very important. I understand there's some amendments on that, which I will certainly welcome. And, you know, I know that a lot of the affordable housing happens in other districts, but this is very important to our senior communities as some of these HUD projects and some of these funding agreements are starting to sunset now. We need to make sure that we keep this affordable housing in place, especially as they're talking about cuts to Social Security. This impacts their ability to buy food and medicine if they cannot have affordable housing available to them. So again, it's 197 units for $1 million. I think it's a very good investment in the seniors in our community, and I hope I can count on the support of council today. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I had.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll move on to Commissioner Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. It is Affordable Housing Day, and I'd like to thank you, Mayor Dyer, for your leadership in this council, because as the Commissioner just alluded to, most of the affordable housing has happened in my district, District 5, nearly to $40 million. So I'd like to thank you all for your support. And in that, I think no matter where in the city of Orlando, we want to make sure that when it comes to affordability, that everyone's protected. And so I've always been a champion of protecting seniors, and we'll hear about the amendment. And when it comes to affordable housing, you all can rely on me to support you all in it. But I also think that it's my responsibility to protect the citizens for long-term affordability. So we'll talk about that on the CRA. And as the mayor stated earlier in his update, that in the Mercy Drive corner, we have now activated a affordable housing complex, which is through Ability Housing, which is all affordable. And now we're moving forward with the Pepper Tree Circle and Pepper Tree Circle that we purchased in a portfolio along with the Orange Center I guess stop, I would say. And with that, we chose Blue Sky developers, and we're bringing close to 200 more families to that corner. And one thing, when we started out prior to building out there, the mayor wanted us to do a Mercy Drive vision plan, because we know without a vision and not a great blueprint, people perish. And we wanted to make sure that the community had input, and that it wasn't the city's vision, but it was the people's vision. And with that, they stated that they needed a better traffic plan. They needed updated sidewalks and handicap accessible driveways and also those curb cuts. And then they needed things so that pedestrians can walk safely and children can walk to our community centers and some of the schools in that area safely, and better stoplight, I think signage for crossing, and also better street lights. So with this CDBG funding and this transportation funding, we're able to actually enhance the traffic concerns and improve that area as we bring along more families to that area. So I'm excited to see that, and thank you, staff, for going out and get those fundings. And I must add, council, that with this agreement with the Preparatory Shores and Preparatory Circle old site, that the $2 million is the largest CDBG ever given here in the city of Orlando. And that is to make sure that we have safe and quality housing for citizens here in that corridor. So, and then we have the second read of our Black Bottom House of Prayer becoming a historic designated landmark and protected in perpetuity, forever. And those are the things that we want to see. And I like to ask the preservation team that started this journey with myself and Pastor Dana Action Jackson and Walter, will you all stand up? Because this was a labor of love. And these are representatives from that help you, Commissioner Sheehan, over in Lake Eola. So can we, and there's some more we got to go, but can we give them a round of applause for making sure the history, no matter where in this city, is protected. And with that, sir, I will hold my other, I apologize, everyone. So some updates in District 5 that will be occurring on Thursday, February the 27th at 6 p.m. at the John Jackson Neighborhood Center. We will be talking about how important the U.S. Census is, and we'll be holding a workshop. And also what we've been told by the census is we're trying to recruit some staffers from that actual area. And we're lagging Commissioner Burns on the west side of Orlando when it comes to staff going out and canvassing and bringing forth the workshop. So hopefully we can increase some of the local folks from the west side. They're paying $17.50 an hour. And we all know how the 2020 census is so very important for the city, the county, and the nation. So we'll be doing that there. Then that Saturday morning, over at the Northwest Center, Neighborhood Center, at 10 a.m., we'll be holding another workshop with the U.S. Census Department. And Reginald McGill, you have spearheaded this and led the way. Thank you for your efforts, and hopefully we'll have great participation. On that morning also in the Northwest Corridor, which is the 29th, I will be partnering with Giving Hope Again, a nonprofit, to do a Black History Brain Bowl. And it's going to be for ages from 8 to 18. We have gotten great participation, quite a few groups from our community centers and also from different neighborhoods have already RSVP'd to be a part of that process. And of course, you know, here in the city of Orlando, we are preparing to be a future-ready city, and there's a master plan that is being put in place, and we're going to district to district to district. And we will be having a community meeting on March 3rd, 2020, at, of course, 2020, from 6 to 8 p.m. there at the Callahan Neighborhood Center. And we will be looking for input from many of our constituents there in the west side of Orlando and also in District 5 on a roadmap for our community to be a part of this great city master plan. And then on March 14th, that Saturday at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., we will be focused along with the Urban League, Career Source, Jobs Partnership on our Blueprint 2.0 outreach workshop. It'll be our first workshop, and we're being strategic. We have singled out a few of the certificate trades, and which will be hosting a workshop for those wanting to acquire their CDL license, their plumbing certification, their fire sprinkler installation, and electrical pole linemen for OUC and Duke Energy. And we have already identified some companies that we can fill that gap for, so there are jobs already ready upon them receiving their certification. And I like to remind everyone, and I have a worksheet and an update for all the other council members. This is a citywide program to where it's open to all city residents, Mayor Dyer, and we'll hold it at this site, but all are welcome. If you know anyone that have interest in these jobs, and these certificates that we're opposing, they pay anywhere from $16 to $40 an hour. We have already identified a trucking company that starting out pay will be $66,000 a year. So we want to make sure, folks, and this is so important because we can talk about affordable housing all day, but if we don't get folks with living wages and the homes that we're building able to assess it, and it has to be done through, I believe, vocational training. When it comes to our seniors, of course, we're focused on maintaining that, but my hope is to make sure that those that acquire this affordable housing and the multifamily uses, is that it's just a transitional phase, that they're not there in perpetuity also, that it opens up a way for the next family in order to become self-sufficient. So that key to that is economics, and it is job training. So I'm excited about all the great things that with this mayor's support and council that we're doing here in the city of Orlando when it comes to affordable housing, but more so education and job training to become self-sufficient. And I'd like to thank Onik also for, I know there was some concerns earlier, but we met and I think we've came to a common agreement that we'll talk about in a bit. Thank you for your continued partnership, Bob, and your team. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Burns.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Mayor and my fellow commissioners, I'd like to acknowledge a special guest, or two special guests here this morning. One is my beautiful mother, Barbara Page Burns. She taught mathematics at Jones High School for over 27 years. And then also with her is another legend in our community, Miss Mary Maxwell. So thank you all for being here. Mayor, a few weeks ago we celebrated the football teams of Jones High School and Edgewater. And this afternoon I wanted to point out yet another connection that the two schools have. I had the pleasure of attending the viewing of Marching Forward, which is a film produced by a UCF student that deals with race relations in Orlando during the 1960s, and how a love for music united the bands of Jones and Edgewater. Also during that, had an opportunity to speak with Commissioner Stewart's brother, Senator George Stewart, who was in attendance at that viewing and attended Edgewater. And so it was just a beautiful film. James Chief Wilson of Jones High and Delbert Kiefner of Edgewater, they were both inspired to cross color lines because of music. And the film explains how in the segregated South Orlando, citizens came together to send a black band of Jones High School and a white band of Edgewater to the 1964 World's Fair. And so I think that partnership and relationship laid the foundation for the beginning of improved race relations, not just in Orlando, but in our area. And so several of our District 6 residents are featured in that that film. One, my mother, Barbara Page Burns, Dr. Carls Mosby, as well as the daughter of James Chief Wilson. The next showing is in April at the Dr. Phillips Performing Arts Center. So I encourage everyone to come out and attend and see this film, and we're hoping that we can get enough support to move it to a larger audience. Also,
what's the name of the film, Bakar?
Marching Forward.
Marching Forward.
Yeah, and it was put together by students of UCF.
Great.
And on this past Friday, Jones High School basketball girls basketball team became regional champs and are headed to the state championship. So we wish them much success as they continue to move forward. Also, I had the opportunity to attend the celebration for the James R. Smith Center 49ers football team. And one of the things that I was excited about is that we had 13 attendees that had straight A's. These are individuals on the football team or cheerleading squad that had straight A's. So it was encouraging to see so many of our youngsters with those good grades. And we continue to press the importance of being a champion in the classroom as well as on the playing field. Also, in an effort to address some of the fights that have been happening in District 6, I'm finding opportunities to speak to our youth about self-awareness, and also to let them know that they are young kings and queens and that they have the ability to define their own future. And so my next talk will be this Wednesday, the 26th, at the Orange Youth Academy, and then this Friday at the Orange County Juvenile Detention Center. Also, there's been some disruption of mail service to our residents of the Lake Richmond neighborhood because of some of the sewer improvements that are happening in that area. So we're working with the postmaster to get those addressed so we can get that mail service restored. And also I'm excited about all the affordable housing that's happening. And again, thank you, Mayor, for your championing a lot of this. And I'm excited about District 6 affordable housing that we will touch on, but hoping that we will lay the foundation for more affordable housing in District 6 as well. And Commissioner Hill, I applaud your efforts on the Blue Point 2.0 and look forward to ensuring that residents of District 6 are able to participate as well. Thank you, Mayor, and that's it for me.
Okay, Bakari, it's customary that whoever's the last commissioner doing consent, go ahead and move the consent agenda.
Mayor, I move the approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Barnes, second by Commissioner Hill. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed. And so the motion carries. I'm going to note also that the district chief's collective bargaining agreement was the last item on the consent agenda. That closes out all of our collective bargaining agreements. So about that. So we're done for 2 years. Okay, if there's no objection, I'm going to recess the city council meeting and convene the CRA meeting. The first item of business is accepting community CRA advisory board minutes from January the 22nd. Motion by Commissioner Stewart.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Sheehan. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Second item is meeting minutes from the CRA, January 27th.
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Stewart. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Commissioner Gray, you've expressed some concern on this next item, and if you would like, I will defer it. See if we can have some further communication on this, or would you rather just have it heard?
I think we can talk and come back with it,
Okay.
if that's okay with you.
Then no objection, we will defer the CRA Business Retention Expansion Program. And that will bring us to number 4. Thomas?
All right, thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. CRA item number 4 today is approving garage signage. So in an effort to achieve our downtown outlet goal of making downtown travel and parking more intuitive and easier, CRA has partnered with City's Parking Division to...
And I think we need to turn the volume up on the...
Is there a mic over there?
Yeah, it's built in.
To provide for, can you hear me now? To provide for lit signage at its garages throughout downtown. This effort is consistent with the DT Outlook as well as the RHI Sociable Cities plans, both of which call for improved wayfinding within the downtown area. It also will meet the new signage branding standards that are being developed by the city's communications department in an attempt to achieve and create more uniformity across city signage. The affected garages that are proposed to be lit today are the Jefferson Street Garage, the Amelia Street Garage, formerly Centralplex, the Library Garage, the 55 West Garage, and the Central Boulevard Garage. I note that the admin garage has previously had its signs added to test their visibility. As in the past, and in an effort to get this done, Mayor and Commissioners, the CRA and the city have previously used a GOA contract for the purchase of wayfinding signs in both downtown and Lock Haven Park. CRA staff is again requesting to utilize GOA's continuing signage construction services agreement dated May 15th of 2019 with AC Signs LLC of Orlando for the installation of these wayfinding signs for vehicles in an estimated amount of just over $104,000. The cost of that to be split evenly between the CRA and the parking division. The city's MWBE office has reviewed the GOA agreement and has determined that there are no city-certified MWBE firms that are able to provide the subject goods or services. The CRA Advisory Board has recommended approval, and if there are no questions, staff is requesting that the CRA authorize the Chief Procurement Officer to enter into a contract with AC Signs LLC based upon the attached documents for the purchase and installation of garage signage in the estimated amount of $104,325, subject to review and approval by the City Attorney's Office.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Is there questions of Thomas? Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. All right, Baptist Terrace funding.
All right. Item number 5 has been talked about, approving Baptist Terrace. Of course, Baptist Terrace is located at 414 East Pine, and consists, as I said earlier, of 197 units of affordable rental apartments for occupants age 62 and over. It was built in 1969 and financed using a HUD 202 loan, which established affordability and age restrictions in place through 2021. At which time those restrictions would no longer be subject. Therefore, the restrictions on rental rates or tenant incomes would no longer be applicable. However, as has been discovered or determined, the Orlando Neighborhood Improvement Corporation, our friends at Onik, are now under contract with the Baptist Terrace property owner, which is First Baptist Housing, Inc., to purchase the property, and both of those entities are committed, I should say, to the sustainability and the extension of affordability and age restrictions for that very important project. Onik intends to renovate all 197 units and obtain permanent financing, low-income housing tax credits from the state, as well as HUD project-based vouchers to ensure the long-term affordability and minimal displacements of residents, and extend the affordability term for a period of at least 20 years. Onik's overall investment in the project, including renovations, exceeds some $38 million. The proposed agreement before you will provide $1 million in CRA funding to be provided to Onik at closing, which Onik would use in renovating the 197 units, and of course, in extending and maintaining the affordable housing for seniors for a period, as I said, of at least 20 years. And Mayor and members of CRA, I believe there is a friendly amendment that's going to be offered at this time.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would like to amend that the at least 20 years be moved to 30 years.
Okay, let's do this first then. Let's have a motion on the item itself.
Okay. Also, I'll move that, Mayor.
And a second. Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner
So I motion
Burns.
to amend the...
Now you're amending the
yes,
item that's on the table.
on the table from 20 years and amending it to 30 years.
Motion on the amendment. So the amendment as stated, current agreement would require that the property remain as affordable housing for 20 years. This would increase that term to 30 years.
To 30 years.
Okay.
And I'd just like to say, if I can, as the commissioner of the district, there was a lot of negotiating behind the scenes. And, you know, I appreciate the friendly amendments and everything like that, but I was frantically worried about these seniors losing their housing and wanted to get this deal done. And if we can get 30 years, that's great. I was just concerned that we weren't going to get this deal done and that these 197 seniors were going to lose their housing.
And I like to,
Commissioner Hill?
Yes, by all means, Commissioner Sheehan, you know my heart. There's no way that I want to displace any seniors. But I do think when we have city tax dollars, especially $1 million, that I want to see if we could negotiate to get greater, because no one was able to come to me until Thursday to get our opinion. And we all have a vote and a say in these tax dollars. And I think we came to a great place where we got 10 extra years of affordability without having to go back to the well 20 years from now.
And Mayor, if I can, the original ask was $2 million, so that's going to leave more dollars available for affordable housing in other districts. So, okay.
Thomas, as I understand it, everybody's on both sides happy at 30 years, and that
Yes.
it complies with any funding sources. It doesn't compromise anything that
Absolutely.
they might be doing going forward.
That is correct, Mayor. The members of the board and top staff members of Onik are here, and they have agreed, and it's been, as it has been noted, this is consistent with the state's low-income housing tax credit program as well.
Okay, Commissioner Burns?
Yes, I'm in support. I would like us to consider adding the language at least 30 years, because personally I would like to see it in perpetuity. I'm not sure if that would happen. 50 years, I'm not sure how that would impact the investment, but having it at least 30 years, I would like us to consider that.
I think we, Commissioner, I think we use boilerplate language, whatever language the state would have, so.
Yeah, Mayor, if I could, I would, and I think everybody involved appreciates the spirit of however I would point this out. What we're voting on today and the extension that we're talking about today is only pertinent to the $1 million that the CRA is funding. And therefore, if they don't achieve that 30-year amendment, that $1 million would be due back from us to us from Onik. The rest of it has to do with HUD and other funding partners. And of course, we haven't gotten to the point yet where we actually have a HUD deal in place that we can change and amend. Though it's, I think, a great concept, I'm not sure it's true that we can commit HUD or obligate HUD in their absence.
Yeah, thank you. Again, my focus is ensuring that it remains affordable throughout the life.
And I think we all share that, Commissioner Burns. So. Okay, let's see, we need to vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment indicate so by saying aye. Aye. All those in favor of the funding agreement as amended indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, Thomas.
Thank you. And item number 6 is approving Amelia Court Phase 2 funding agreement. I'm sure you recall Amelia Court Phase 2 is a multifamily residential complex at Creative Village that contains some 105 affordable units. They received an award of the city's local government preference for RFA number 218-12. The goals established in the downtown outlook include improving the variety of housing options and providing affordable housing and ensuring long-term affordability. The proposed agreement provides $625,750 in CRA funding, which is the amount of the local government preference to be provided to Amelia Court following completion of construction of the project in exchange for Amelia Court operating and maintaining the project as affordable in accordance with the terms of the agreement. Again, the CRA Advisory Board has approved, and if there are no questions, staff is requesting the CRA approve the funding agreement with Amelia Court at Creative Village Phase 2 Partners LTD, subject to review and approval by the City Attorney's Office, and authorize the Chairman and the Executive Director to execute the agreement.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Questions of Thomas? Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Further business to come before the CRA, Thomas?
There's none, Mayor. Thank you.
Then we'll stand adjourned. We'll reconvene the City Council meeting without objection, and that brings us to new business, which is actually returning old business, Hamilton Lane replat. You'll recall 6 months ago, 8 months ago.
It was actually 8 months ago.
8 months ago, this item came before us. We had a significant amount of testimony and then suggested that perhaps the bank and the other landowner seemed like a simple thing to come together and get this resolved. So they've had 8 months working on that, but now this is back before us. Elizabeth, do you have a presentation related to this?
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. My name is Elizabeth Dang, the planning official for the city. This is a review of a project that came before the board before the council this last June. As a reminder, this is a lot located at 2009 Hamilton Lane. It's just south of Cayley Street, west of Summerlin, and north of East Harding Street. The request is for what we call a plat with modifications, because the width is 55 feet wide, which meets the required width, but the depth is 99 feet, which is a requirement of 110 feet. So that's the modification that's being requested for this lot. And then some history on this site. Back in 2003, lots 18, 19, 20, plus the southern portion of lot 17 were all under the same ownership, and a single-family home was constructed on those lots, along with a pool, a garage, and a basketball court. And because those were all under one ownership, the city considers that house to quote-unquote bind the lots together for zoning purposes. And it's very common, if anyone looks at a legal description for a lot in the city of Orlando, that people might own a lot and a half or 2 lots and have one house on it. What is unusual for this particular site is that the property had 2 separate mortgages on it, one for the house and one for the rear yard. So what happened was those mortgages were both foreclosed, but at 2 different times and to 2 different banks. So in 2010, the northern portion, which is lot 18, and the south portion of lot 17, went into foreclosure and was transferred to Ward John H. Jr. trustee. And that's the property that's the subject of this request today. In 2015, lots 19 and 20, which have the house on it, were foreclosed and transferred to Deutsche Bank as the trustee. And that address is 615 East Harding Street. So in 2016, the applicant purchased lot 18 and the southern portion of lot 17. And you can see from the aerial photo that the basketball court plus half of the pool and half of the garage are on those lots. This site shows a photo of the basketball court area, and the area has been fenced off. So this survey shows that the boundary line cuts across the center of the pool and the garage under different ownership. So the applicant would like to construct a new single-family home, but for zoning purposes, all these lots are still joined together, and the zoning allows one house per building site. So the good news is, because this is a larger lot, there is room to split these lots, and in fact, if there were no home on the lot, it could be split into 2 R1 lots that meet the lot widths, but would be non-conforming for the depth, just like all the other existing lots on this block. But because the foreclosure process created 2 separate owners, that's not a possibility, and the property owners cannot develop independently. In order to demolish those structures, the city would need an application signed by both property owners, because it's not possible to demolish half of the structure, because that would create an unsafe condition for a neighboring property owner. So the applicant has proposed to create 2 new lots that would allow them to develop one single-family home. So the idea here is to plat 1 lot of record, which would be the single-family home, and then create a 15-foot second lot, a tract, with this adjacent structures on it. And you can see from their proposed site plan that the new house would meet the setbacks and zoning requirements for a single-family home. So that lot would become a buildable lot with a width of 55 feet, but that non-conforming depth of 99 feet, which creates also a non-conforming area of 5,445 feet. Lot 2 will not be a buildable lot. It could at some point be sold to the adjacent owner, or it could be retained by the current owner, and then together those 2 owners could address the demolition at some point in the future. So there are some code standards on what the process is for reviewing a plat with modifications. This allows the MPB and by extension City Council to add conditions of approval that would not ordinarily be the case for a lot that does conform to the code. So in this case, the criteria for that plat, does it meet the growth management plan? The answer is yes. It has the density required. Is it in the public interest? The answer here is yes. It's a single-family home, which is compatible with the adjacent single-family uses. Are there public facilities available? The answer is yes. Their infrastructure is available to serve this lot. Is there a hardship? In this case, all the lots on this block have the unusual condition of being 99 feet deep, and there's no way that the property owner could find additional lot depth to meet the code. So, as I mentioned, the council can place conditions of approval on a plat with modifications. And in this case, the recommendation is to have a maximum height of 2 stories, a maximum floor area ratio of 0.45, which means that the square footage of the house is limited to 2,450 square feet. A requirement for the parking to be addressed. This is a through lot, so the garage will be accessed by the rear of the home, which is similar to other lots on the block. And then once there's an architect and elevations are prepared, those will be reviewed by staff. So to summarize, this request is consistent with the city's comp plan and other standards for review of a plat with modification of standards. The conditions of approval will ensure compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. And then as background as well, there was a number of public comments received from the MPB, testimony at the MPB meeting as well as at this council in June. There are some code enforcement violations on the southern property, the home, that have been addressed over the years. And there are concerns especially about that southern property, and these 2 property owners so far have not been able to negotiate a compromise. So based on this information, the staff is recommending approval of this project.
Commissioner Sheehan.
Yeah, Elizabeth, just to clarify that the lot, this would be creating a third lot. The lot 2 would be that weird 15-foot thing in the middle where the swimming pool
right.
and the because it's kind of confusing. You have 2 lots. They're asking to kind of make a third lot, and then you still have the 15-foot property dispute that unfortunately over the last 8 months the parties have not been able to reach an agreement on.
That's correct.
Okay, just to clarify, because I know it's confusing. They're talking about lot 1 and lot 2. This is actually going to be like creating a lot 3.
Right.
Okay? Originally, it was all 1.
Originally,
Originally it was
3 and a
3 and
third,
half.
3 and a half.
Yeah. Okay, I know it's very confusing. We've been trying to get everybody together. We've tried to host both parties in City Hall, try to get them to come to an agreement. I understand the concerns of the neighborhood because they are very concerned about the condition of the front house, but by denying the other property owner, that's not creating a sense of urgency for Deutsche Bank, and they continue to allow that house on the front to deteriorate, which is a shame. So I would just say to my code enforcement friends that we might want to give this a little extra attention because it's not fair to the neighbors to have to be dealing with an absentee landlord, which is basically Deutsche Bank, who actually seems to have no sense of urgency in dealing with the situation.
Okay, you got a motion, Commissioner?
I would like to move forward with the lot split. But we do have, I know we got public comment, but my motion is to allow the replat, allow the replat as was approved by MPB, gosh, how many months ago?
9 months ago.
9 months ago, okay. And that's my motion, Mayor.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan and second by Commissioner Hill. Okay, we do have some appearance requests. Since this is a continuation from before and we've already had testimony, it's not necessarily appropriate, but I'm going to allow it anyway since you're here and want to testify. So And I'd also, if somebody representing the applicant wants to speak afterwards. Yeah. Okay. Richard Sconyers first, and then Beth Naro. You have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Richard Sconyers. I'm a registered architect in the state of Florida. I live at 2008 Hamilton Lane, which is directly across from the subject property. The neighbors are still in opposition to this modification. Nothing has changed since the city council meeting in June. This modification creates a site that is, I hear that it is 55 feet wide, but then it reduces the area to 5,400 where the minimum requirement is 6,000. It has a depth of 99 where the minimum requirement is 115 feet. Regarding the depth, every lot on this block, as was stated, is the same issue. They are all 99 feet wide, but they still meet the area requirement because they're wide enough. This is going to be the smallest lot on that property. In this modification, if it's only about the depth, then let's talk about the property as a whole instead of trying to bifurcate the property. Because what that's doing is allowing RMS to sit on that 15 feet and hold the bank hostage. One criteria of this modification is hardship, as was noted, but there's no hardship. RMS knew exactly what he was buying. It's the reason why he bought this property. After the June meeting, he requested a meeting with the neighbors, which I was the only one in attendance. And in that meeting, he made his point very clear that he wants to stick it to the bank. That's his words. All right, so he's not interested in negotiating. He wants something for nothing. And by separating this property, you're allowing him to either develop the property or sell it off and squat on the 15 feet indefinitely. And it's not going to resolve the empty house. In the past, the city has stated that they cannot participate in land negotiations. I understand that. But if you approve this modification, that is exactly what you're doing. You're giving RMS all of the leverage and negotiation power to sit on that property and get exactly what he wants out of it. The neighbors of Wekiva are asking this modification not be approved, and the empty lot is not the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ortiz has a question. Mr. Sconyers, Commissioner Ortiz has a question.
Thank you. I have a question for you. In terms of the perspective of the neighbors, how would this affect you guys? And the reason I'm not trying to be facetious or anything, I'm just trying to get feedback in terms of how this affects you guys, neighbors, property value, whatever you all consider that this may affect you.
Well, it is an eyesore, and I don't see a resolution if someone is not interested in negotiating a fair market value. And I'm not trying to be the negotiator in between this, but they are so far apart, neither one of them wants to talk to each other, and that's because, as Matir said, he wants to stick it to the bank. That's his main goal.
Thank you, sir.
Beth Naro.
Good afternoon. I'm Beth Norrell from Greenberg Traurig, and I'm the attorney that represents the bank, Deutsche Bank as trustee, the owner of 615 East Harding. And I first want to start out and say, just to address the three issues that were brought up as far as compliance with Chapter 65. First of all, the purpose and intent of the growth management plan is to protect the natural beauty and man-made amenities. In this case, the natural beauty of that house and that neighborhood was affected solely by the applicant. Here's the pictures of the wrought iron fence that goes directly through the garage. It's not even just over top of the pool, which creates a hazard to anyone who happened to climb into that area. If someone goes through that pool, they're going to be trapped underneath that fence because it's pinning down the cover that my client put on that pool to try and prevent anyone from falling in it. Public interest. Each and every neighbor has come forward and said that this is an eyesore, that this has been a problem for their community. This is a great interest of public interest. It's not a matter of just, trying to make this neighborhood better. Mr. Matir, RMS, is not willing to negotiate with my client. So we're not able to fix this problem. And the issue that's going to be created if this replat is approved is this 15-foot parcel will never, ever be addressed. Their entire proposal only addresses the larger lot that they want to build property on, but it doesn't address that 15-foot parcel. I have brought with me, well, first of all, I'll mention the hardship. Under Chapter 65, the hardship, if the hardship existed at the time the person purchased the property, that can't be the hardship that they allege here in this application, and that is exactly what they're doing. So they don't meet those three criteria. And as far as trying to address and resolve the issue in the property, back in June, when everyone was before the City Council, Commissioner Sheehan, you requested that everybody in good faith hire a neutral appraiser, and in good faith try to negotiate some sort of a resolution. We tried to do that. My client requested joint effort with Gray Robinson, RMS's attorneys, to try and hire, let's pick a neutral appraiser to evaluate the property. They would not agree. They would not work with us. We even went to the prior appraiser that they used previously in this case, and Gray Robinson would not let us use that prior appraiser. So we came up with our own appraiser, found someone who was willing to value the 15-foot parcel of property. And when he made that estimate, we gave the copy of the appraisal to Gray Robinson. We offered full appraisal amount. Let's end this today. They refused. They don't have an appraisal of the 15-foot parcel telling us what it's worth, but they're demanding hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars more than any of this is worth. My last communication with them regarding the 15-foot parcel was back in July, when we offered an additional $10,000 above and beyond what that 15-foot parcel was valued at, and to this day, they have never countered and have never responded to that. All they're addressing is demanding the sale of my client's property to them, or that my client pay exorbitant sums for all this to make it all go away. That is fundamentally unfair, and I don't want them to be misrepresenting to this council that my client is somehow not negotiating, or is not playing fair, or is not communicating with them. We're the last ones to have tried to resolve this 15-foot parcel. I brought all the emails with me communicating with council. It's probably not the best thing to let you all know what the amounts are, especially since I think we're going to be on the news here later. But that is something that we're dealing with here. My client has tried to negotiate. They can't come up here and say, we offered so much for the 15-foot parcel and they rejected it, because that didn't happen. They're not trying to resolve the 15-foot parcel, and their whole presentation here shows it. All they're interested in is just, we're going to address this one big lot. It'll look great. It'll be fine, except that that 15-foot parcel is going to prevent my client from ever being able to address this house. They've worked diligently on it for 5 years. And in fact, we have a buyer for the property, but he can't solidify the deal because nobody knows what the 15-foot parcel is going to go for. How can we get anyone to purchase the property when they don't know what the entire package is going to cost them? That buyer, I believe, is here at some point today. I saw him earlier out in the hallway. So we do have people who are interested in buying this property, but it's very difficult to sell it when you have someone who is clearly so uncooperative that they put a wrought iron fence through the garage and over top of the pool. Everybody knows that there's this 15-foot parcel issue, but for him to put this fence up and create an unsafe condition, he's now alienated the entire rest of the community. So this, my client asked, at a minimum, you give this 60 days, bench it for 60 days so that prospective buyer can try and negotiate over the 15-foot parcel so he knows what the overall package is. It's not like this has sat for 8 months and nothing has been done. I've done everything the council has asked, and I've tried everything to get this to resolve. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's hear from the applicant's representatives.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, Jason Searle, Gray Robinson, 301 East Pine Street, Orlando. Thank you very much for, Elizabeth, your presentation and for the motion. We concur with the recommendation of the Municipal Planning Board. We believe, as was outlined in the staff's presentation, that the modification of standards for the replat were met. During the time, the 8 months since we were before you last at council and 9 months since the recommendation from MPB, we had attempted in good faith to negotiate with the adjacent property owner. And in a minute, I'd like to bring my law partner, Jeff Aaron, up, who was running point on some of that for you, to respond to some of the direct comments from council that you just heard. As you can see, the result of those negotiations was an unsuccessful situation. We are left at an impasse, and this is the only avenue through which our client can utilize its property. So And just to briefly reiterate the 4 requirements, and I believe that part of this is you're going to hear a lot of ancillary or peripheral information. The key here is whether or not this plat with mod meets the 4 requirements. And we believe it does, and staff believe it does, and the MPB, before we came before you, believes it does. Consistent with the purpose and the intent of the GMP, check. Does not have a significant adverse impact on public utilities, check. Would not adversely impact the public interest, check. Strict application of the code would create a legal hardship, check. With that, I'd like to bring, if I may, Jeff, if it pleases the Mayor and the Council, to address just some of the ancillary comments regarding the negotiations and discussions since June. Jeff?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Aaron with Gray Robinson. Happy to just touch on a few points that Council addressed. After this, City Council asked us to go back and engage in independent appraisers. We did that. We hired an appraiser, we paid an appraiser. The appraiser came back and told us, I can't give you an appraisal. There isn't a way for me to do this calculation because there are no comps. There's no other home anywhere, especially in the city of Orlando, where there's half a garage, half a pool, half of a spa on the property. I can give you a value of raw land, but that's irrelevant. That's not what we have here. So you're right, Beth is right, and to that extent, that's probably the only thing we agree on is that we've not been able to agree on the price, on this value. Her version of the story is thoroughly entertaining to me because 8 months ago when we were here, it was asked that we table this for 30 days. We tabled it for 8 months. Shortly thereafter, Beth told me that we're going to market this house for sale. We're going to sell it. There's been 9 Hubzu auctions that I've accounted for. I'm sure there's been a few others that I've not seen. The most recent one ended in December for $320,000. My clients offered to buy the house for $300,000 cash, closed in 48 hours. No contingencies. I'm sorry. So yeah, it was 320. I have screenshots of it, and we offered 300. Months go by. I followed up November, December, January. Follow up 72 hours before this council. She's finally forced to respond, unilaterally reject our offer. An hour before today, there's new offers, new developments, new buyers. Let me remind the council, what we're trying to do is carve off the vacant raw piece of land and build a home. As staff has already identified, that leaves that 15-foot strip untouched. We're not demolishing the land. We still would like to sell it or buy the house to reunite it. Nothing changes. We just aren't held captive anymore or hostage anymore with our vacant piece of land. And I talked to the buyer. I talked to this prospective buyer, told him, of course, I'm happy to take, as I've always been, any offer to RMS. They'll take a look at it. I think he told me that the reason that he's backing out is because he did a home inspection yesterday and the second floor is full of termites. I hear some allegations that the home was beautiful. If anybody has driven by it, I think that we would disagree, or you'd be able to disagree. There's pieces of this house, the siding is missing, there's black mold, the cover on the pool, which is completely ineffective, is completely deteriorated. It's a piece of fabric that's been there for years now. Is completely falling apart. That was why we put up the fence, was to make sure that kids that walk from Boone High School crossing our property don't get caught up, God forbid, in that pool. So we fenced off and took possession of our property.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sheehan?
I want to be clear on one thing. When I asked about the independent appraisal, I don't care what's on it. I asked for a land appraisal because you know what? Y'all are like the Hatfields and McCoys here, and you're never going to agree. And, I mean, seriously. So, I mean, all I wanted was a value of the land. I mean, I can't believe that you cannot get an appraisal on the land. I don't care about the buildings. I'm sorry. We're just trying to figure out what, and I want to get this resolved so that we can move forward and the neighborhood can feel like there's going to be, especially since this house continues to deteriorate, if it's got termites, if it's got black mold, I understand why these folks in the neighborhood are concerned. So I don't agree with one thing that you guys said, that you can't get an appraisal. Yeah, you can't get an appraisal on a weird situation like this, but You know, I want to know what the value of the land is. So does anybody have any idea what a parcel that is 15 by, was it 90 feet is worth?
We have an agreement from area contracting that said that 15-foot parcel is worth $30,000, and we have to provide a copy of it. I didn't bring it with me here today, but I have provided it to Ray Robinson last year.
And have you offered them $30,000 for that 15-foot parcel?
Right. 10 grand over that.
So you offered them $40,000 for that?
Yes. Just for the 15-foot parcel, $40,000.
You guys are killing me here.
There was no comment to that, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, it is not a fair market.
$40,000 for the entire piece, not for just that 15 feet.
Right.
And again, I don't like having to sit here and
No, the
negotiate
gist
real
I
estate.
get is the one owner offered 300 for the house, and they offered to sell or to purchase the strip for 40,000. So there's offers going both ways.
There's offers going both ways, and what's important here is that piece of this has no bearing on the replat. I mean, the elements for the replat are set out in city code. We meet each and every one of these elements. Again, if we're allowed to build a home on that second piece of land, this 15-foot strip of property remains. I've told every buyer that the one buyer that I spoke to, who approached me earlier today for the first time, that of course we're not interested in creating a problem. Our principal of our company has extensive ties to the community with Boone High School. We want the area to be amazing. We're not trying to create a problem, but I'm up against a bank with no motivation to do anything until 72 hours, 24 hours before these hearings. So how long is my client supposed to be held captive?
Well, I would think if you're going to build and live in a home next to this deteriorating home, you would have incentive to try to fix the problem, right?
Agreed.
All right, further questions or comments? Commissioner Sheehan, close.
Well, I'm distressed about this.
Hold on, I didn't see Commissioner Ortiz had buzzed in.
I'm distressed about this offer that should have tied it up.
Let's give
There we go.
Commissioner Ortiz.
I am more than happy to hear from my colleagues on this one, because
I just want to ask a couple of questions. Who has this third lot? Somebody has a 15 feet, and then who is the one with that property out of the two? I'm a little confused about who owns what. They have the 15 feet parcel, and you have the rest of it. So you have the largest property. You have the house with it property. And you're offering $40,000. And they offer you to 300 out of the 320. You offer to sell it for 320?
No, 320 is $300,000 is what they're asking us to sell the property for. They said that was a bid that they saw on Hubzu for my guy's property, which was not accepted. And that's nowhere near the numbers that I'm discussing with the current person who's trying to buy the property, who, by the way, has also not been told what they're asking for the 15-foot parcel. And sure, we asked the Skyners, somebody else, one of the other neighbors is trying to get the 15-foot parcel too, and they're not giving numbers.
There's a number that you would sell the property for?
My client's property in the house, yes.
How much?
I get to that before coming in today. I offer $475 is what I offer.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a little high. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, an hour before this city council, Beth emailed me, we'll offer you $475. Her buyer then walked up to me in front of city council, said, Beth told me I can have it for $400.
Okay, none of the rest of this is appropriate for us.
Right, I agree, it's not appropriate.
Commissioner
It's not
Ortiz,
appropriate, it's not relevant.
take us down a rabbit hole.
Right.
Yeah, pretty quick, isn't it? I will do some. Somebody's going to have to do some good faith healing here.
We're trying to bring in a new buyer so that they can negotiate, because clearly there's such bad blood here that it can't be resolved. So if we were able to get a new buyer on our property, they can negotiate with RMS. And from what I understand, is because the buyer just mentioned it to them today.
Okay, we have to decide whether to do the replat.
So one last question before the 15-foot property that they're offering 40. If you were to sell it, for how much will you sell it?
Commissioner, I don't think it's appropriate to be negotiating.
I'm just trying to figure out which way the baby's going to go here, because I got to make a decision in terms of voting. So,
if I may, there's a straightforward city process through which we made application. It was reviewed by staff. It went to the MPB for recommendation. We vetted this, had a very similar discussion. Beth was there, much like this right now, for hours. And it was determined with those additional conditions of approval that Elizabeth talked about in her outline, that we met the 4 requirements and should be approved for our plat with modification standards. This talk about negotiations and actions and who did what and who did not do what are frankly outside the criteria of what we are focused on as it relates to this plat with mods. Now, notwithstanding that, we took the continuance, we agreed to it, we've reached out, we've made good faith efforts, and it's been unsuccessful. Parties agree to not agree to buy and sell property every day. It's part of the process. Not every deal results in a purchase and sale. So we have our request. We believe we've met it. Your staff has told you that we met it. They've provided the details, and we have no other option but to move forward with what we've requested so that we can build a home on the property.
Okay, let's hear from Commissioner Hill and Commissioner Gray.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hill.
Well, I'm speaking to my colleague. In light of, I did second the motion, but in light of what I'm hearing, I don't see the difference between 30 to 60 days to table this and come back. If it's, of course, I'll take your lead in this, but it seems like there's been a little misrepresentation from both sides, and I would like for this to...
Commissioner, this has been going on for 9 months. I think we need to just resolve it.
4 years. 4 years.
This has been going on for 4 years, and this is the difficulty. Is when Mr. Mateer originally bought this, it was for a kid who's now in college to go to Boone. I mean, that's how long this has been going on. And you know, I don't know if a continuance would do any good. I mean, I wish we could just get a value on just the land itself, which is what I asked. I don't care about the other property issues. I just wish we could get that resolved so that we could get a purchase price and move on, so we can get this house fixed instead of it. This is my issue, is that this house, I understand that one party's going to be able to move on. The neighborhood's going to have to deal with a foreclosed on house with a fence in the middle of the pool. That doesn't create a great sense of, resolution for me. So, got 30 more days to work it out, folks. I can't, I'm not ready to split the baby today. You got 30 more days to work it out. Try to act like adults and get it set. All right? So.
What are you asking to do, Commissioner Sheehan?
Commission the replat. I'm working a deal with the other one, but I can't do that because that would be tortious interference. But let's come back in 30 days and figure it out.
Hold on, let's hear from Commissioner Gray.
Yeah, I'll answer that first. I mean, the price should not come into play. I mean, the appraised value, the value of anything is what a willing buyer and a willing seller agree to. If both sides don't agree, that's their prerogative. If you own real estate, you can set the price, whether it's fair, reasonable, or not. It's your property. You should do what you want to it. And I think what the applicant, it feels to me, is they followed our code. We may not like it, but they did it. And we've tried to ask them to sit down and discuss it. I think it's folly to think they're going to come to a different conclusion in 30 days. They've made their conclusion. I think we just need to decide. And I hate it, but the reality is, if they don't want to sell it, they don't want to sell it. I mean, if the applicant doesn't want to sell it, the applicant doesn't have to sell it. And I don't think it's our position to try to establish what the price is. It's not our business. And so, therefore, as much as I don't like it, Mayor, I'd like to call the motion and let's vote.
Yeah, Commissioner, I agree with that. Let's either go up or down on this, and then they can deal with the consequences of that.
Okay.
All right, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Yeah, okay. All right, motion passes. All right, that brings us to hearings ordinances on first reading number 1. Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 2020-10, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, annexing to the corporate limits of the city certain property generally located north of Hoffner Avenue, east of Conway Road, south of Simmons Road, and west of South Cimarron Boulevard, and comprised of 24.05 acres of land, more or less, and amending the city's boundary description, amending the city's adopted growth management plan to designate the property as office low intensity and residential low intensity on the city's official future land use maps, designating the property as the low intensity office residential with the aircraft noise overlay district and special plan for Conway Road and residential low development with the aircraft noise overlay district on the city's official zoning maps, providing for amendment of the city's official future land use and zoning maps, providing for severability, correction of scrivener's error, permit disclaimer, and effective date.
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Gray, second by Commissioner Stewart. I have 3 cards, but I think these are for 2020-11. Yeah. Okay. Is there anyone that wants to testify related to this matter? Just make that clear. Okay. Hearing none, discussion among commissioners. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, let's go to hearings ordinances on second reading number 1.
Ordinance 2020-7, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, relating to historic preservation, designating certain real property generally located north of Bentley Street, east of North Westmoreland Drive, west of Beach Avenue, and south of West Livingston Street, addressed as 921 Bentley Street, as an Orlando historic landmark, providing for severability, correction of scrivener's errors, and effective date.
I move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Is there anyone from the public who would like to testify related to this matter? Discussion among commissioners. Lawana Gelzer. Just before you speak, Commissioner Uribe, we welcome you. Did you want to make comments at some point, or you just? Okay, thanks.
Ready?
Yep.
Lawana Gelzer, 7674 St. Stephen's Court. I really wasn't going to speak on this, but I wanted to go on record because historical, anything landmark that has been designated, especially on the west side of town, I've watched it disappear when a new project comes along. But my main concern is eligibility for additional funds because it sits in the CRA, and will that happen? And you know, I might not be against it, but there's been a lot of projects that we've awaited to be done in that community, and I would hope that this does not supersede or go before all of those projects. So I waited, and I'm just going to watch to see if that CRA designates some improvements, because the church is in really disarray. I was very concerned about what happened to it, but also the community wants to make sure that the entire community is receiving services, and not just a special select group of businesses or landmarks. So I'm very concerned because we lost Tinkerfield. We've lost a lot that was already on a national registry. So can this be changed, or is this just a roadmap to make sure we're eligible for funding in the future? Thank you.
Okay, discussion among commissioners. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. And number 2.
Ordinance 2020-8, an ordinance of the City of Orlando granting Schwartz Family Venture, LLC, doing business as Redbox Plus of Orlando, a non-exclusive franchise to provide roll-off container collection and disposal of solid waste within the City of Orlando, outlining franchisees' duties and providing the terms and conditions under which such franchise shall operate, providing for severability and effective date.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Hill. Is there anyone from the public like to testify on this matter? Discussion among commissioners. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, the next item is ordinance 2020-11, and that relates to a GMP amendment and rezoning for property located at 3750 WD Judge Road Drive, and there are also a legislative appeal and a quasi-judicial appeal on today's agenda relating to that same property and project, so we need to do the appeals before we take up the ordinance. So first we have a legislative appeal, which is appeal of GMP 20-2019-10013 Fern Grove Apartments. This is an appeal of a legislative recommendation made by the MPB to the council at its meeting on August the 20th. The MPB considered a proposed amendment related to the growth management plan to allow the development of a 138-unit senior housing development at 3750 WD Judge Drive. After concluding the public hearing, the MPB recommended approval of the proposed GMP amendment. Section 2.179 of the Orlando City Code gives the appellant and the city staff each 10 minutes to present their case. So we will have city staff present for 10 minutes, and then we will have the appellant have the opportunity for 10 minutes. So let's start with our city's planning manager, Rsvp'D.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. My name is Rsvp'D, the planning official for City of Orlando, here to present to you today on the Fern Grove Senior Apartments Legislative Appeal. This item was heard by the Municipal Planning Board on August 20th, and the legislative appeal was deferred to today because there was an associated quasi-judicial appeal so that they can be heard together. This property is approximately 22 acres located north of Colonial Drive, east of Mercy Drive, south of WD Judge Drive, and west of North John Young Parkway. The request is for a growth management plan amendment to change the future land use designation from residential low intensity to residential medium intensity on the northern 6.6 acres of the property. This is also associated with the quasi-judicial items, which are zoning, master plan, and conditional use to allow a 138-unit multifamily project. So the MPB recommended approval of all four of those requests on August 20th, 2019. On August 26th, Dr. Wanda Jones, the appellant, filed a timely appeal for the legislative item, as well as filing a quasi-judicial appeal. And then on January 10th, following that quasi-judicial appeal, there was a receipt of a recommended order prepared by the hearing officer, which brings us to you today. So this request is to change the future land use just on this northern portion of the property. You can see here it's residential medium intensity, which matches the existing multifamily just to the west of the property. This aerial photo shows a single-family neighborhood to the east, multifamily to the west, industrial in unincorporated Orange County to the south, as well as an industrial under construction to the north. These site photos on the upper left show the industrial site under construction across WD Judge Drive. The center photos shows some single-family residences to the east of the subject property, and you can see in the bottom right the subject property is vacant. This survey of the property shows the northern 6.6 acres, and the lines through the center, that kind of unusual shape, that's the boundary of the wetlands on the site. So the survey shows the approved water management district wetland boundary, and it shows a 25-foot buffer, meaning that no part of the multifamily development will be inside the wetland, and there's no request to impact or change the wetland boundary at all. So as a reminder, this site was approved for townhome development back in 2006 in the old Princeton Village PD. It's approximately 112 units that cover the majority of the site. And that approval is still in place today. This conceptual site plan shows the 4-story multifamily building with associated parking and landscaping. This site is in the Wekiva overlay. In 2004, the state passed the Wekiva Parkway and Protection Act. The area hatched in green shows the Wekiva River Protection Area. That's the highest level of scrutiny, and that's the area closest to the springs itself. And then the larger area shown in the red hatch marks is called the Wekiva Study Area. That's a much broader area where development is expected subject to certain standards. And it's important to note here that the majority of the city of Winter Garden, Oakland, Ocoee, parts of Maitland, most of Apopka, those are all in the Wekiva Study Area. So these are all places where commercial and multifamily development would be expected. So in order to comply with those state requirements, in 2006, the city adopted the Wekiva GMP map and policies. All of those policies were reviewed by various state agencies at the time, and the city also adopted associated zoning requirements to implement those policies. And since 2006, anytime the city's proposed a change to the future land use map, all those agencies have reviewed and found those changes to be in compliance. So this dark line here on the map shows the boundary of the Wekiva overlay inside city limits, and it does cover most of the northwest portion of the city, including Rosemont, parts of College Park, Lake Lawn, and Mercy Drive corridor. And to clarify, so that the main development standard associated with the policy is a requirement for a minimum of 20% open space for all development sites that are 5 acres or more. On this site, the wetland accounts for about 9.35 out of the total 22.72 acres, which is 41%, and that well exceeds the minimum 20% required. So the city code provides standards for review of a legislative appeal, which is what you're hearing today. And the staff has findings related to if that comprehensive plan is consistent with city code. So the finding is that yes, it is consistent with the state comprehensive plan, with the East Central Florida Comprehensive Regional Policy Plan, as well as with Florida statutes relating to comprehensive plan amendments. In addition, the request is consistent with the city's growth management plan. It reflects the changed condition that wetland boundaries have been accurately surveyed and that the property owner is proposing multifamily development. And then the amendment will ensure compatibility with surrounding uses by being associated with a master plan that provides adequate setbacks and transitions in building heights. And the proposed amendment will not result in demands on public facilities that exceed the city's ability to provide service. So in this instance, the request from the appellant is to deny the comp plan amendments. So these are sort of confusing motions, I guess you could say, but if you recommend approval of the appeal, then the comp plan amendment would not become effective. If the council recommends denial, then there is an associated ordinance later on this agenda. And so the staff recommendation is to deny the legislative appeal. And I'm available if you have any questions.
Commissioner Stewart.
Elizabeth, I'm trying to understand a little bit because I see two things. On one, I show a map where it shows the northern portion above the wetlands as residential low and the southern portion as residential low. That is on the zoning side, I think. Yeah, go.
This one?
Yeah, right here. Mm-hmm. So what is the actual property they want to develop? Only the northern portion?
So today the request, the associated master plan and conditional use covers just this northern portion. They have requested just a regular R2A zoning, and that's part of the zoning request for this southern piece. They haven't decided yet what may be developed there, But the staff recommendation is, because there is single family adjacent and there are connecting streets here, to have a compatible use, so they could in the future plat that for a single family or duplex.
Was that request in the original?
Originally, they requested multifamily for that site, but because they didn't have a plan for that, and the access was through single family, the staff recommended instead the R2A zoning, and they agreed with that.
Was that staff recommendation included in the
Yes, that was well before we got to a hearing.
So the only appeal that they have is the appeal for the northern portion, is that right?
So this legislative appeal applies only to this 6.6 acres.
Okay.
We'll discuss that. And then later we'll get to the quasi-judicial, which applies to the zoning, which covers the whole site.
Okay.
Commissioner Hill.
I just want to say, with the approval or denial, this space here, what we're speaking on right now, it is already zoned for housing.
That's correct. So
Correct.
if everything
it doesn't
was
matter
disapproved,
if it's multifamily, it's a zone for
right.
housing.
So someone could get approval for a plat to do townhome development.
Anybody else? Okay, then we will hear from the appellant, Dr. Jones, Dr. Wanda Jones.
Okay. Is there just an overall mic here? Okay. All right. I am opposing this. I'm going to go through the PowerPoint quickly. You all already have it in your hands, so I don't need to dwell on it, because one of the things I wanted to address is most significantly, the impact of air quality on the residents in this area. So I'm going to, the first portion, this first slide addresses much of that, so I'm going to come back to that slide. Starting with this one of the things that we are opposed to is that there's a number of ordinances that the City of Orlando has in place that are designed to protect wetlands. And one of the arguments that City of Orlando continues to use is that only this little sliver is wetlands. According to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers' legal definition of wetlands, this whole entire 22 acres is wetlands, based on the vegetation, based on the hydrology, and based on the water levels. So all of it is wetlands, not just the portion that has been designated so that this developer can do what it is that they want to do. So City of Orlando has a number of ordinances that are designed to protect that, are designed to support the Wekiva Parkway Protection Act, and those are violated if you all approve this as a city council. There's also protections given to endangered species and U.S. territorial waters that will be impacted by this land if these 22 acres are developed. Currently, the forest is providing flood protection to the community, to my community next to it, and we're very concerned seeing what's happened across the street with Princeton Oaks about what that will entail for our property values, well, our properties, if we lose this protected wetlands. The protected forest, this wetland forest is protected by state statute because it's been classified as, first of all, it's within the Wekiva study area. Second of all, it's also been classified by the state as a critically important aquifer recharge area. It's been classified as a more vulnerable aquifer recharge area for the Wekiva Spring. People say Wekiva Spring's very far away, has nothing to do with this land. The Wekiva study area was created because the scientists recognized the danger to paving over the entire spring shed and what that would mean to the flow of Wekiva Spring. And as Ms. Dang pointed out, what's happening with all the other municipal governments and how much development there is, anybody who's lived in Florida their entire life, as I have, has noticed that the Wekiva Spring no longer has the flow that it had years ago. And a large part of that is due to the loss of the wetlands and pervious area where the water can trickle through down into the aquifer in order to recharge Wekiva Spring. So any further loss of any of the Wekiva Spring shed recharge areas basically spells death for the Wekiva Spring. Also, we have a huge problem with mosquitoes. As I hope you all know, mosquitoes carry diseases. We have a lot of senior citizens, children that live in that area. When you all approved the destruction of 60 acres across from my neighborhood to build an industrial warehouse, within a year we started having serious mosquito problems. The mosquitoes that, at one time we could be outside of our house and not, excuse me one second, Mayor Dyer. Is that, oh, that timer's going backwards, right? Okay. Thank you. Sorry. So at one point in time, we could stay outside past sundown and still do the anything we wanted to in our yard without having to be eaten up by mosquitoes. Now, by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we have mosquitoes that are basically just eating us up like nobody's business. And everybody who lives there can tell you, if anybody who's lived there for as long as I have can tell you, we didn't have this problem before we lost the forest. Having been an intrepid explorer, and I would explore that forest over there and down at the end of the street, I can tell you there's a lot of mosquitoes that used to be across the street in that forest. It was so bad that I would have to wear a jacket and a hood over my head and put off on my jacket. That's how bad the mosquitoes were. That's the reason why I know that the mosquitoes that used to be over there are now in our neighborhood. So that's just an accident. That's just a mosquito-borne disease waiting to happen in terms of negatively impacting our community. In addition, some of the other concerns are that the project is too high. There is no other building in the area that is 4 stories high, and that's incompatible with Orlando ordinance. Compensation surface water storage has not been evaluated. The FEMA rating has not been reevaluated since Princeton Oaks was there. There's a lot of things that have not been evaluated or considered, as you all can read. As I said, you all can read because you have a copy of this. We're concerned about further sinkhole development in our neighborhood. A traffic study hasn't been conducted. In spite of what Ms. Dang said, we have been through this at the Municipal Planning Board and also during the quasi-judicial hearing. Phase 2. The developer first said that they weren't going to build it. Now Ms. Dang is saying that they don't know what they're going to do. And the Municipal Planning Board approved this project with a Phase 2 there. Phase 2, if it is built, number one, can't be built without destroying what little portion they're calling the wetlands is. Number 2, it also can't be built without directing traffic through what is currently dead-end streets in my neighborhood. We've had those dead-end streets for over 50, 60 years. It's a nice place to raise your children because you don't have to worry about traffic hitting one of your children out in the street. But if they build this, if they are allowed to build this, if you approve it, we're going to have some huge traffic problems because they're going to cut off our dead end and start directing traffic through our streets. Landscaping, let's say air, water quality, public health, all of those are concerns. And then I talked about compensation. Wekiva study area, Again, you can read this. Basically, these lands are protected by state statute, and that must be acknowledged and considered in terms of whether or not this is approved. The environmental assessment for Fern Grove was a draft. It wasn't a final document. It also was missing some critically important portions that are outlined in your own comprehensive plan that the developers have to follow. They were missing some of the information that should have been included. The environmental assessment was not complete. So that's another reason as to why this should be denied, because they did not follow your own rules in terms of providing what they are supposed to provide to your planning department in order to be in compliance with your ordinances. I've listed a number of other ordinances that are not, that are violated if this is approved. Again, you all can read through those. The Wekiva report, this was done by the state of Florida. This is showing that in terms of the Florida aquifer, this is a vulnerable recharge area, more vulnerable recharge area for the, I don't have, is there a pointer anywhere? Oh, I'll just use this. All right, this is where we are. This is Lake Lawn. This is the area we're talking about. Basically, you can see all of it, according to this map, is more vulnerable recharge area for the Florida aquifer. For the Wekiva Spring aquifer, all of that area is green, and you can see that's considered to be vulnerable aquifer recharge area. So I'm not just talking to you off the top of my head. This is what our state said about this area. So this area, these 22 acres need to be protected if you all want to protect Wekiva Springs for current and future generations. Going back to the a large old growth tree. So I have a few numbers here because we're talking about 22 acres of old growth forest that my community relies upon in order to have good air quality. So just to give you an idea, for a 50-year-old oak forest, 50 tons of carbon dioxide is removed every year per acre. So 15 tons, 50-year-old oak forest removes 15 tons of carbon dioxide for every acre of that forest. It produces 11 tons of oxygen. Currently, Fern Grove, in its present form, is removing 330 tons of carbon dioxide per acres per year, which, if people need a reference, that's about the same weight of 110 cars that will take a Kia Optima. It is also currently producing 242 tons of oxygen, that's 484,000 pounds of acres per year, that's about 81 cars. So this forest, in spite of the fact that everybody wants to ignore the importance of this forest to the health, the public health of the people in this area, it's providing a very, very important service to us. We have a lot of senior citizens. I myself have asthma, so I need all the clean air I can get. And if you remove these 22 acres on top of the 160 acres that have already been removed to make the recreational park, the packing district, and that industrial warehouse, you are seriously exposing us to some very poor air quality. So I hope you will give this as much discussion in terms of considering the public health of the people within this neighborhood as you did to the house that the people were arguing about previously. Because I think public health definitely deserves significant amount of attention, perhaps more attention than a house.
Thank you. We'll open this up for public hearing at this point. I do have one request for, well, are there any questions? Luana Gelser.
Luana Gelser, 7674 St. Stephen's Court, Orlando 32805. I'm going to talk about, I need everybody to call this phone number, 407-246-2221. That's the mayor's office for those who are watching. And the reason why I want you to call is listen to what they say. We're about sustainability. And we're supposed to be a sustainable city. But I just spoke at Rollins College, my alma mater, this past Friday. And we talked about what has been happening in the country, especially to urban communities, communities of color, and income-challenged communities. And so I see disproportionately rules that are applying to protect people on the east side of town not being done on the west side of town. So let's just talk about air quality. You got the Bloomberg grant. Believe it or not, we're 2 community captains, and we're in charge of doing air quality monitoring. And guess what 3 communities we're doing the work in? Paramore, Holden Heights, and Mercy Drive, to where we have just applied for an EPA grant, and it's working with other individuals outside the Orlando area, because she said you're in the 76th percentile. The Paramore community is in the 98th percentile deemed by the EPA when it comes to air quality. And I say that to say, when they originally started doing all of this construction, a lot of this land was in Orange County. It was annexed into the city because a statement was made because they couldn't do what they wanted to do when it was in the county. Annexed into the city, will make it happen. And guess what? You've made it happen. 350 acres, 160 acres have been lost. These are wetlands, lost. 5,000 trees. Why are we planting trees when we cutting them down? 5,000 trees so far. And you're talking about, I'm for the seniors, affordable housing, but you're removing trees. So the air quality, who's affected by poor air quality? Seniors and children, the most vulnerable population that we claim we want to serve. So when I say you just do it or you just move on about it, Dr. Jones talked about the height requirement. It's a violation. C-2, the changing of the heights from 35 feet to 60 feet, that's, that was what you just voted on the consent agenda for Hannibal Square. So you change the ordinance or variance anytime you want to. And I seem to notice it's always on the west side of town. So I'm just saying, we talk about it, but do you really care about a community that seems to have been left voiceless, or when people speak up about the community, it doesn't make any difference? Walmart, Princeton Oaks, Subaru dealership that's supposed to be coming. We're talking about 700 trucks now on John Young. But what is the most troubling thing about this situation is Dr. Jones reside in the county. The dead-end streets are the county. This is in the city because it got annexed. So you got the county and the city not even working together like they should. So now that the people across the street from the warehouses with the 700 trucks coming every day, what their problem is, they had to buy flood insurance. It's not the mosquitoes. It's just why you got to keep focusing on this one area. You're gonna make it so bad that it doesn't matter anymore, and that's exactly what you're doing. But you say you're about sustainability. Sustainability for who? What community? The most vulnerable community is looking to you to do the right thing. And they're putting in a plan just for the north part. They don't even know what they're going to do on the south part. But if you approve the north plan, then most likely, because you've approved that, you're going to go ahead and let them do what they need to do for the south. I've never heard of such a thing, but maybe that was the strategy. Let's get this done, and they have no choice but to do the other. So she's talked about how this is going to affect our community. We're telling you air quality is one thing, and then you don't even put air quality monitors. We're having to pay for them ourselves out of our own pocket. So it's clearly you don't care about the people in Mercy Drive. I don't care what you say. Thank you.
I motion to approve the denial of the appeal for Fern Grove Apartments.
Second.
Okay, so the motion is the staff recommendation to deny the appeal.
Yes.
All right, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, so the motion carries. Okay, next on the agenda is item 16, which is a quasi-judicial hearing, a recommended order from the hearing officer in case number QJ 2019-003, relating to a request for rezoning master plan and conditional use permit for Fern Grove Senior Housing. This is the same project that we just were speaking of. Petitioner in this case is Wanda Jones. The applicant is Banyan Development Group, LLC. Let's begin with background from Elizabeth.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. I will try to be brief and just highlight the differences between the last case that we saw. So this quasi-judicial appeal applies to the zoning, the master plan, and the conditional use application. Can we get the PowerPoint?
Yeah, you got more time than she
back
did.
up?
You can get 10 minutes.
Can we get the PowerPoint back up, please?
Does she get more time than she do, Ms. Dyer? Does she get more time because she's staff?
Let's see, in this one, Elizabeth presents, and then we can allow each of the parties, Elizabeth can have 10, each of the parties have 10. So that would be the petitioner and the applicant.
I believe the applicant is waiving their opportunity to speak today.
Okay. But you know what? Let's just time how much Elizabeth takes, and we'll give the petitioner the same amount that Elizabeth uses.
Thank you, everyone. Do you have the PowerPoint on your screen? You have it there? Okay. We don't have it up on these screens.
Yeah, we have it on paper. We don't have it on the screen either.
I don't have the PowerPoint. She put it in the machine.
Oh, no, this is mine. It's the one that says quasi-judicial. It's the third of the...
There, it just came up.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So again, same location. And the requested action here, so the zoning will split into 3 parts. That northern portion, R3B, which is a multifamily designation, the central portion to become a conservation area, which is 9.35 acres, and the southern portion to be zoned R2A, which allows single-family or duplex development, all with the Wekiva overlay. Then the second request is for a master plan for the 4-story, 138-unit apartment building. And the third request is to increase the maximum height from 40 feet to 55 feet. And that is part of the code that in the R3B district, a property owner can ask for a conditional use to increase the height. So once again, the applicant filed a timely appeal. The appeal was heard by a hearing officer on November 26, 2019, and that hearing officer provided a decision on January 10th. So this shows the zoning map, and Commissioner Stewart, this answers your question from previously. So you'll see here the proposed zoning to the north is R3B, but to the south it's R2A, which is a less intense zoning district. Again, the zoning is approved for 112 townhome units. The site plan we saw previously, these are the building elevations, and these are very preliminary, and they will be developed further. The Land Development Code has standards related to the Wekiva overlay, which is the 20% open space requirement. Stormwater must be designed as an amenity, and no variances from the impervious surface ratio is allowed, and they're not proposing any. So they're meeting these standards as proposed. The groundwater recharge standard, this is more of a permitting issue that gets addressed at the time of permitting. So the city code establishes procedures for certain land use approvals that do go to a hearing officer as a quasi-judicial appeal. And the findings by the hearing officer did confirm that the property is in the Wekiva overlay. It is within the state's Wekiva study area, and agreed with staff that it is not within the Wekiva River protection area. That was a long discussion during the hearing process. The subject property is approved for 112 townhomes, And the proposed wetland boundary that was included in the application is consistent with what was approved by the Water Management District and is considered to be accurate by the hearing officer. So the environmental assessment confirmed no endangered or threatened species or animals or plants where the senior housing project is to be located. So the MPB approval did not violate city ordinances, and that refers to the Wekiva overlay there. And so the MPB approval did not violate any other state or local or federal acts. And so the recommendation was approval consistent with the MPB recommendation. So here again, if the council approves the hearing, the recommended order by the hearing officer, the next step would be to vote on the ordinance. And then the staff recommendation is for approval. Any questions?
Questions, anybody? Okay, how long did she take?
6 minutes.
6 minutes, okay, 6 minutes.
And how much time did you say you had?
6 minutes.
Before she started speaking, didn't you say 10?
I agreed that we'd do the same for both.
You said 10. You were going to give her 10 and give me 10, and she just chose not to use
We're
her
going to
10.
just do the same for both, so 6 minutes. Challenge it in a court of law. Well, actually, we could do no minutes. Historically, we've done 5 minutes. We don't usually do 10 minutes, so you're getting a minute more than we generally do.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Okay, so to start off with, so to echo what, hold on, let me start my timer. Okay, 6 minutes. Okay, so one of the things that I've already talked about how much oxygen is produced. Before you all started destroying the Little Wekiva River headwaters and the wetlands over there, that wetland forest of about 350 acres were producing about 4,935 tons per acre per year. I'm sorry, they were absorbing that much carbon dioxide, which is about the equivalent of the weight of 1,645 cars, and it produced 3,850 tons of oxygen per acre per year. Once you decided to put in your tennis courts for the rec park for packing district and let the industrial warehouse be built, we lost 4,800,000 pounds per acre, which is of CO2, which is 2,400 tons. And the amount of oxygen produced that we lost was 1,210 tons. And then if you all approve Subaru, which at the rate you're going right now, you will, that's another 77 acres, and that's a loss of trees that's absorbing and reducing carbon dioxide and air pollutants by 1,155 tons. That equals 385 cars. And if Princeton Oaks is allowed to do their back phase 2, that's another 900 tons of CO2 that is going to no longer be absorbed, and we will lose the production capability of 1,507 acres. So I have to say, just based on what has happened in the past 5 minutes or 10 minutes in terms of not even discussing the other portion, I hope I am not going to be disappointed by the fact that public health is not important enough to the city council for you all to even consider not going through with this. Instead of saying, yes, let's build this, make it the whole entire 22 acres, zone it for conservation. Yes, we do need affordable housing in this city. We already have 3 affordable housing senior home apartments within less than a mile of this area. And plus there's the new affordable housing that was just put there. So we've got 4 units of affordable housing in less than a mile of each other, whereas Commissioner Sheehan's complaining about the fact that they're about to lose some, and she's very concerned about her citizens. My suggestion would be take this and put it over there in her district, because obviously she definitely needs it, rather than destroying a critically important environmental resource, not just for the residents in the area, but also for anybody who uses Wekiva Springs. So I am not opposed to affordable housing for seniors. They need it, but what I am opposed to is putting Fern Grove right there on top of a critically important aquifer recharge area and losing what is about 3,000 trees to a development that could be placed somewhere else. We're talking about 400 people's, no, actually more than that, because if you count all of Mercy Drive in my community, that's maybe about 400 to 500 people. That we're talking about their health. We're talking about their respiratory health. We're talking about the importance of the fact that African Americans are genetically predisposed to having respiratory conditions, which then lead to heart conditions, and we're predisposed to that too. Does anybody care about that up here on this panel? Because it doesn't seem like it with everything. It's just like you're just basically giving developers the right to bulldoze everything over there in that community. It doesn't matter that I live in the county right next to this project. We are still human beings who deserve the right to have clean air, just like the people in North, East, and South Orlando. So why not put this over there and actually start being a green and sustainable city and start saving the last forest in Orlando? Because that's what this is. This is the last forest in Orlando that you all are in the process of allowing developers to destroy. So the last point that I want to make is this is all happening over in the African American community. You continue putting affordable housing there. This developer has said in the past that the people there need it. People there already have 3 senior housing facilities. A lot of the people, the older people are homeowners. They own their homes. They don't need this. Now, if you're moving people into Mercy Drive, okay, maybe they need it, but move them through other parts of the city, because by continuing to put these affordable housing targeting African Americans in the African American community, you are basically continuing a segregation process, because that's exactly, if you look at Orlando, all of the affordable housing, much of it is in the African American community. You keep doing it, then that essentially is a segregation practice. The other thing, you all know the city council decisions are being made that have such a negative impact on the environment and the people living around it, as is happening in the African American community, not just in this area, but in other areas too. And so environmental justice is a huge concern, and that's something that is definitely going to be addressed more in the future, because by putting these, destroying the Wekiva forest, these wetland forests in the African American community, you're increasing the air pollution, because you just widened John Young Parkway to this big, well, bigger, but the point is you widened it, there's more semi-trucks coming down. Semi-trucks have carcinogenic exhaust, and we are exposed to that. These trees are helping to protect us. So I would like to say, please leave the forest, do conservation, place this affordable housing in perhaps Commissioner Sheehan's area, where they may need it more than we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the applicant waive their time, their 6 minutes? Okay. Commissioner Hill, do you have a motion to approve the hearing officer's recommended order?
Yes, I motion to approve the hearing officer's recommendation.
Motion and a second discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, we get one more bite at the apple here. We've got the ordinance on first read, number 1, 2020-11. Madam Clerk, would you read the ordinance?
Ordinance 2020-11, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, amending the city's growth management plan to change the future land use map designation for certain land generally located north of West Colonial Drive, east of Mercy Drive, south of WD Judge Drive, and west of North John Young Parkway, comprised of 22.717 acres of land, more or less, from residential low intensity to residential medium intensity in part, changing the property zoning designation from planned development with the Wekiva overlay zoning district to residential medium intensity in part, 1 to 2 family residential in part, and conservation in part, all with the Wekiva overlay zoning district, providing for amendment of the city's official future land use and zoning maps, providing for severability, correction of scrivener's errors, permanent disclaimer, and effective date.
Okay, is there anyone from the public that would like to testify on this matter? I do have a couple of additional cards. Kimberly Burkett. And then the other two cards I have are Lawana Gelsler and Valerie Starks.
Before I get started, I tried to get this down to 5 minutes, but I think it's about 6. Would you mind if I was making cogent points at the end if I had another minute?
And I'll be the arbiter of whether they're cogent
Yeah, you
or
can.
not.
All right.
Okay. You can have 6 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Kimberly Bukite, 252 Springmont Circle, Longwood. I'm a land surveyor and an independent consultant. I've been in Central Florida since the mid-1980s. My business is a certified woman-owned business, and I've done many projects for the city of Orlando. I appreciate the opportunities that I've had to see my efforts help to build our community in a positive way, and I hope I can shed some light on some of the things you've already heard today. I come to you with the utmost respect to tell you that I'm very discouraged by what I see happening throughout Central Florida, but specifically in the Princeton and John Young area. And you know, I'm hearing that the community is frustrated, and for good reason. I understand why. It may be that we all express ourselves differently, but I think it's important that we listen to the concerns. So I'm going to speak in opposition to the approval of the Fern Grove project. On Fern Grove, I spoke in opposition to the approval of the project at the Municipal Planning Board meeting in August of 2019, and I also attended and participated in the quasi-judicial hearing on the matter. That's why I thought I was going to be able to speak on that as well and get a little more time. I do not agree with the MPB recommendation for approval as is or the quasi-judicial hearing outcome, but that's moot now. There are several things that haven't been resolved satisfactorily. I'm still concerned that the wetlands on site will need to be impacted to get to the back part of the property for access to future phase of development. I'm glad Commissioner Stewart brought that up. I don't think that question has been answered. I think that should be addressed now as part of this current approval so that the neighbors will know if there will be traffic down their streets or not for access. And they've asked that on several occasions, and I've heard several different answers to that same question. Otherwise, the public will have to attend 5 or 6 more meetings for that project when it comes up to be changed. Regular people just can't do that. It's burdensome to have to attend these meetings and get off from work. Furthermore, that conservation area that's being discussed has no protection. I was concerned that the tree survey was not an actual tree survey. I was concerned that 2 members of the Municipal Planning Board had conflicts of interest on the matter. I was concerned that the applicant is not the owner, and that the owner listed on the application does not match the name of the record title holder of the property. I was also concerned that the city does not seem to be recognizing the importance of the remaining wetland systems in this area with respect to the flood maps and the functions that these wetlands still perform. First, on the issue of ownership, and I'd like to put something up. Is there a way to...
Ed?
Is there a way to put something up? Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I thought it was already set up. Thank you. Oh, I saw your password. I forgot it.
I'm going to have to do it from the back.
Oh, okay.
That's upside down to us.
Technology. Oh, now I got it. All right, that's going to be hard for you to read, but what that shows is that the owner of the property is West 50 Joint Venture, but on the deed, which I just looked at today and downloaded, the owner is Nancy Rossman and Scott Gold as successor co-agents and trustees under a trust. So why is that important? It's important because the Burt-Harris Act has been cited as the reason why the city is afraid to deny developments. But if you look at the Burt-Harris Act, and I'll give you those references. It's 70.0012, 70.0013E1, and 70.0013F. It says that it's the owner of the property that can make those claims. It doesn't say it's an applicant that can make those claims. So generally, the developers are applying voluntarily, asking for these changes, not the owners. So let's get into the wetlands. This is the wetland map that's going to be really hard to see. That's actually the FEMA flood map. But what I handed to you so you'll have it in front of you and you can see better is kind of what's going on in this area. So what I'd like to show you is that we need to look at this area as a whole. Maybe perhaps do a cumulative impact study or look at revising the flood maps. The flood map is dated 2009. It hasn't taken into consideration all of these projects that have been added to this area. There's the contractor's business part where conservation easement was released west of Walmart, and those plans are already approved. Those protected wetlands will be destroyed. The packing district park is under construction now. I put a picture of the lone tree that's left in the packing district there. That's already been, I watched those wetlands go down in July of last year. I watched while a swallowtail kite was jumping from tree to tree trying to stay out of harm's way. There's one tree left on that property now. I could go on about Princeton Oaks, what's going on with District West coming up with Subaru, but I'll be back to talk about that in a couple of weeks. I think it's important that you think about what's really going on out in this area as a whole. The comprehensive plan hasn't been changed, and the comp plan shows protected wetlands 105, 106, and 107 in this area. And I'd be happy to go over this with Richard Allen and Jim Hunt. I see Rick Howard's here. Maybe I can get in and have a meeting with them and go over the details of why these wetlands in this area are supposed to be protected, and they're just not being protected. Staff is being told that they're not of sufficient quality, and that isn't the issue. These wetlands are deemed protected wetlands by location and location only. So I urge you to take this opportunity, take a time out. Let's get the rest of this right, and you don't have to approve every project.
Thank you. Valerie Starks. Is she here?
Oh.
Okay.
Well, I just rushed through it, so why don't you say what you'd like to say? Yeah, thank you.
Hello. My name is Valerie Starks. I live at 3700 Libra Drive, 32816. I am also here to speak out against the developments on the Wekiva study area most directly impacting communities on Mercy Drive and WD Judge. I'm not a scientist, I'm a student, I'm a filmmaker, but I have attended enough of these city council meetings, enough of the quasi-judicial hearings to understand to have serious concern about the lack of regard from our city commissioners, from our city government in regard to public health and the communities who are living directly in these areas impacted by development. I am speaking out against what I recognize as a larger pattern of environmental racism, which is when negative environmental impacts have a disproportionate effect on Black and brown communities. That looks like having Black communities built on Superfund sites. That looks like the community of Paramore being directly impacted by the highways and by disproportionate amounts of toxins fueling through the community. That looks like in my hometown of Jacksonville when lower lying areas that are predominantly Black are most impacted by hurricanes and by the flood systems that come through. And that is what's happening here on the communities in Mercy Drive. I am part of a generation that is really acutely aware of what it means when our elected officials fail to consider future impact and consider the precedent that they are setting when they make decisions now without regard for communities, without regard for the concerns that they raise, without regard for our future. And so, again, I am wanting to speak out against, continued development on the Wekiva study area, as Dr. Jones and several others have mentioned. The wetlands that exist there, the forests are important for filtering out toxins in the air, for providing a flood barrier for the community, for housing several species of animals. And it seems to me that, these approvals keep going through, and a community is left to pick up the pieces. Every person sitting on, as far as I know, every person sitting on this commissioner board doesn't live over in Mercy Drive, doesn't live over on WD Judge, doesn't live in the areas where they're going to be most directly impacted on the day-to-day by the traffic. That's going to affect the children who live there, by the reduction in air quality affects the senior citizens and the children who live there, by the long-term impacts years from now, years down the road, when if you continue to approve these developments and, again, these things that everyone's predicted happen, the community's left to pick up the pieces. So I'm rambling a little bit just because I'm looking at that timer and it's ticking by very quickly. But again, I just wanted to come here because I'm very worried as a citizen about what's going to happen to people who live in this area, but also more generally. Because again, I list my address. I live on the east side. I'm a student at the University of Central Florida. One could question why I'm out here, but I recognize that this is a community struggle that goes beyond the people living in the most directly impacted areas. So again, I hope that you take into consideration the months, really the years of fight that have been put up by Dr. Jones and other community members in their lawsuit, as well as attending city council meetings, hearing the votes on Fern Grove, on the upcoming vote about the Subaru proposal, the industrial warehouse packing district, all of those. I hope you take these concerns into serious consideration when it comes to public health, when it comes to environmental health, when it comes to community impact. Thank you.
Thank you. Luana Gelzer.
Great job. Luana Gelzer, 7674 St. Stephen's Court. Environmental justice. Well, it was stated earlier that you're going to do what you want to do. But you talk about public health, and you talk about the concerns of the community, and you talk about affordable housing. And I kind of told Dr. Jones Friday I was going to do this. Great job. Great job, a dog and pony show. And why I say that is because you go through the steps, you change the rules as you go, and you really is setting a precedence that a certain community does not make a difference. To me, that's discrimination. You have the facts before you. You choose to look the other way. When I saw in Paramore, tree grades to protect trees at Creative Village got $219,000, more important than a health disparity study in the Paramore community. I could tell the trees were more important. We found $6 million for Constitutional Park for 3 trees. What we are here for is for the people who cannot be here today. We're concerned about what's going to happen in the future when you're not here anymore. And I'm really concerned that you really don't care based on your actions. And your actions say, just get through it. If you're sick, be sick. Now, I'm going to go back to Paramore when I talked about the respiratory problems that we have. Always transportation has been put through, major transportation has been put through communities of color. That's just the way it has always been. Why can't you be different? And why have we almost lost 350 acres of wetlands? Well, let's take I took a history lesson on Friday. 78 years on Robinson Street. For 78 years, a gasification plant stood. And no one seemed to understand what the impact will be. What the impact today is, every time you write a grant for the Paramore community, you talk about we have one of the highest asthma rates in the country. But what nobody understood was they went 200 feet long, 100 feet wide, 65 feet down, 2 feet walls. 8 to 10 inch lid, and they call it the Paramore coffin, to contain the contamination of the land right there on the 400 and 500 block on Robinson Street. That's because people prior to you allowed them to do what they wanted to do. And now the community is suffering because of that. So it's not necessarily us, but who's coming after us. And my concern is, it doesn't matter what facts we bring to you, how you look, how you don't listen, because your action literally dictates that the developers are more important than the citizens, especially citizens on the west side of town. So I never expect you to change your ways, because you just can't change them. The developer is more important. Campaign contributions, whatever it may be. But the health of young children and the health of the elderly depends on the wetlands and others being treated equally and fair when it comes to environment. And how can we say we're a sustainable city when you constantly do things that will affect the community on the west side, and then you don't even say you have any dollars for a health disparity study or educational program or even air monitors or anything else? It's like fend for yourself. Well, we will continue to fend for ourselves. And the one thing I must say in closing, I come to city council not for you to change your mind, because I never expect you to listen to the citizens. Because I watch you spend so much time on that rabbit hole on 15 by 90 feet. I come for documentation. And we have documented how our community has been discriminated against. And I close by saying it's not environmental justice, it's environmental racism. And it might be happening everywhere, but it's happening here today. And we need to put a stop to it. Thank you. Go ahead and vote.
Okay, that's all the testimony, or all the cards that I have, and appreciate the testimony. While I don't deem it very relevant to what we're here for, we're actually here for a land use and zoning change from townhouses to multifamily senior. So, Commissioner Hill.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and I am very comfortable with this vote because I have heard the voices of the people, and if you was here earlier, you heard me talk about the year of community engagement in the Mercy Drive corridor, in which we put forth a Mercy Drive vision plan. And many of the things that you see moving forward, especially when it comes to affordable housing, when it comes to health and wellness, when it comes to public health, their number one focus was housing. And that was the lack thereof that was affordable. And most definitely for the seniors in that area, because they had maxed out, and there's years and years of a waiting list at 3 of the major senior facilities there in that corner. So this was something that I could support, especially we had gone through and said, how would this impact that community environmentally? And then I was giving a report to where these 2 parcels that we're talking about today had already been deemed in the early 2000s as a place to build upon when it came for residents. But it also did not impact those wetlands, which was very important. We do care about the wetlands. I tell you one thing that I care most about is seniors dying on the street of Orlando because they don't have proper housing. That children that are sleeping in parking lots at Walmarts, and especially there on the west side of Orlando, I hear their cries when they call this office. And thank goodness for many of our partners, especially no more than this weekend, one of the coldest weekends here in the city of Orlando in the last year. 3 seniors called, female seniors, and stated that they had nowhere to stay. But because of our partnership with Orlando Union Rescue Mission and their women's shelter, we were able to house these seniors this weekend. There is a great need, and I really appreciate this development group for looking west, because yes, there is needed everywhere. but most definitely it's needed on the west side of Orlando. And this group has also met multiple times because we met, and they were sanctioned to go out to the community and hear their voices and understand what their needs were. And that happened. That happened before we initially voted to pass this ordinance and this development. So I do, if it's passed today, look for more community input and community meetings with this Fern development group. But I am absolutely confident that this is the right thing to do. And especially with this new zoning for single family homes. I don't know if anybody ever noticed, but I am black. So to think that I'm voting on things that are indifference to the black community, I find appalling. I find it appalling. I know the young lady stated that's a filmmaker. Do any of us stay in Mercy Drive or Paramore? Well, I am a product of that community. I am a product of Paramore. I am a product of Mercy Drive. I've stayed in some of the most squalorous conditions and grew up in them. This lady can tell you, Mrs. Burns, that taught us at Jones High School, all of us didn't have a single family household, but the only way, and she can testify to this, that the only way you can truly build black wealth and black communities is single family homes and home ownership. So I applaud moving forward this agenda on this vote for us to be able to continue the path, not just in Paramore, but heading down to Mercy Drive to build single family houses so we can continue to build wealth in our urban core. This is a vote that we must pass. Because in order to talk about diversity and inclusion, it starts with home ownership. Thank you, Mayor.
Let's see, we did get a motion at the beginning, right?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Okay. That concludes the official business for today.